This is chapter 5, part 2, or part B, however you want to call this. So we talked about the difference between the prefix and postfix in the increment or decrement with it. Let me take you on to the while loop right now. Is that, remember now, in the while loop, there's three things I really need for you to that's different from the looping structure. The slide has here's the while loop, and it also has the condition. It has the statement, and then the while loop is true. The statement will execute repeatedly with this thing. So the while loop is considered while loop if else. All those are considered what's called pre-test loops, which means that they would test the value of the condition prior to executing the actual loop with it. Care must be taken with it, but here's I really want to talk to you about the while loop. There's three things you need to understand about the while loop. I need to point out. One of the things is that if you look at the while loop, the first thing is there has to be some sort of initialization of what's called the loop control variable. I'm going to talk to you the loop control variable in a second here. The second thing is that when you look at your condition of the test expression, or however you want to call this, or I should really call this thing as the test expression, which contains your loop control variable, which is the second thing, right? So inside of this you have I'll say number 2, the test expression contains the loop control variable. And depending on you have how many statements and all that, I assume that you have more than one statement. The third part is you gotta have an update of the loop control variable to make it false. So keeping this in mind for the while loop, initialization of the loop control variable that makes it true. You enter this with a certain condition. If this is true, you do this block of code. And more important, the last statement, you need to update this until the loop control variable becomes false, which this becomes false and it exits the loop with it. So these are three things. Just keep that in mind with it. Now, let me approach with this. The loop that does not end, or I'll call infinite loop. Now this is a test question. It's one of the things I want to ask you as well. So make sure you know this one right here. So if a loop always comes in, let's say this while loop that I just gave you in here, and if I don't have this statement right here, this loop's going to loop around, round, and it will be infinite as well, right? So that's why you want to design a loop that actually allow you to actually exit properly with this thing, okay? So what I would like for you to do is to look at the while loop. I have a while loop .java that's in your book. Let me pause. Let me get that up here. This is the while loop that's in your book. Again, if you look at, here's number 1. This is what's considered as your initialization. Plug in your initialization. Okay, condition number 2 for what's called the loop control variable, which is number. And you will actually do it, 1 is less than or equal to 5 is true. You come out, you will print hello, and this is the number 3 is where you update the number, which means what? Number equals number plus 1. So this will actually fall out when actually the number is going to turn to 6, correct? And that will become false. You will exit this loop, and you will print out that's all. All right. So this is an example of your traditional while loop with this thing. So inside of this while loop that we just took a look at, here's what a flowchart looks like. So it's a Boolean expression, true, false. False, you don't do that block of code. If it's true, you execute those statements in your curly brackets with it. This is an example of an infinite loop with this. As you can see, your initialization is 20. And then you plug 20 is greater than 0, which is true. And this, of course, miss out your third expressions to update that x. X here is your loop control variable, right? Here, the version of the loop decrements, same thing with it as well. So this would never be, you come in as 20, and you come in, you x would be greater than 20 with it, so it's 20, and then it drops down to what, x decrement, this becomes 19, plug 19 back into this thing, true, come out again, still less, decrement 18, and it goes down, down, down. To the last one, it decrements to x goes to 1, and then 0 is greater than 0, which is false with this. Okay, so this is an example how you would actually have this loop basically exit out of this expression with it. So it has to. So this is number 1, number 2, and number 3. Okay, so keep in mind those 3 things that you gotta have for a while loop. All 3 of them relates to the loop control variable, by the way. So you use the curly brackets like a block statement. This is what this is saying. If I don't have this curly brackets, when I have more than one statement, it's just going to execute this one statement only. So you need to have those curly brackets. It's like that if statements that you were looking at. Okay. When you come up, so that's the loop with it. Here is the other format of the for loop. The for loop and the while loop is basically the same thing. If you look at what I just wrote, 1, 2, 3, the first statement is the initialization, your test expression, and your update, and then your statements or statement here with it. So it's the same thing. Let me pull up the squares.java. This is the square.java for the for loop with this. This is your initialization is number. Of course, this declare is int, and you put in a 1 in this thing. 1 is less than or equal to 10, true, and then you come with this output with this thing. If you look at here, the number is 1, and plus you tab over a couple of spaces and you're in a square. 1 times 1 is 1. That's the concatenation of that moving over to the tab with it as well. And then you come up here, you post increment, and it does this same thing as the while loop. This is what this is saying with it. Okay. So this is the same thing as the while loop. It updates the same thing as what it needs to have for a while loop flowchart with it as well. Same thing as I'm not going to continue and talk to you about the user, the squares, but you will, when we get into arrays, you will see nested for loops. How you write rows and columns are very, very important with it. For loop is a pre-test loops with it as well, right? Update expression is very important in this thing. So in the for loop, when you look at the initialization for the for loop, and the initialization counter for the for loops with it, it can actually declare and have you, and then it tells you to post increment or update that particular loop with it. The update expression is usually used to increment or decrement the counter of the variable declaring on the initialization of that loop control variable with it. So the update section of the loop executes the last in the loop. And you can have update many multiple times with this thing. Again, very similar format as the while loop that you will see that you've seen in the past with it. Coming down here, let me show you. Here is another condition that you will see. So this is basically your initialization. All of this is your initialization, and then you have your test expression. Remember what the pipe is, or, right? So one of these have to be true in order to enter this thing. So remember the short circuit. If I is true, meaning 5 is less than 10, is true, it does this. And then if you look at how this is updated with the I and the J, it updates adding 2 to the J with this as well. Right? Note that the semicolon parts of the for loop are mandatory of the semicolon with this thing. So you got to have that's your basic structure for this right here. So again, various things that you look to it. let me stop here. I'm going to pull the sales tax total sales.java, and we'll look at this running total. This is a very neat program.